Good morning. Look at all that snow. Well, obviously we can't work outside, so let's go down into the basement grow room. Come on. So the basement salad's been a huge success, and I want to start more. Plus, I want to try starting a few beets and some radishes. Now the self-watering system, like this one in the corner and over there, that's worked out well. I'm definitely going to leave it. But I need to clean it out because since it's under the lights, it's been turning green. It's gotten soil in there and it just needs a simple clean out. And the last thing we're going to do is to harvest some lettuce for this week's salads. Now for the beets, I'm going to use that self-watering planter that I bought. Remember, we've already harvested the lettuce out of here. Now the water in the base, it's not turned green because the light can't get through that soil. So that doesn't need cleaning. And I'm just going to put 3 beet seeds. It's just going to be simple. Now I have this little area that's perfect over here. And I'm going to use the soil blocker. And after the lettuce seeds sprout, in about 2 weeks, we'll pot them up to bigger pots and give them some space to grow more. That's what I learned growing this lettuce recently. I left them in the soil blockers for 3 weeks, and some of them got shaded by the bigger leaves. And then when I potted them up and gave them more space, they got bigger. Now this is my favorite potting mix. Pro Mix. I either like the moisture control or the organic. I like it because it comes compressed and it stores really easily. But you are going to need to break it apart and it's going to take a lot of water. It took about 1.5 gallons. It's going to vary depending on how dry your soil is. Now you're going to want the soil to hold together, but not drip. Let me show you what I mean. Now, because I have arthritis, I don't use the soil blocker in the traditional method where you press down to fill it up. I like to turn it over and to fill it from the top. That's easiest on my hands. So this is a 10 by 10 very sturdy tray made by Bootstrap Farmer. Yes, they cost more money, but they are worth it. You can hold it with one hand. You know when it's full and it's heavy? I like that I can hold it with just one hand. And I do plan to invest in 10 by 20, the larger sturdy trays by Bootstrap Farmer. What I have are still just the regular old flimsy trays. Here, let me show you this one. You know how you get them all full and they're heavy and you're busy. And you just want to hold them with one hand and they break and they fall and they spill. Now I made 20 soil blocks, 5 rows of 4. And I'm going to plant 5 varieties of lettuce, 4 each. Now 4 of these are my own saved seed. I have red oak leaf lettuce, and this is my 11th or 12th generation. I've been saving it for 11 years. Then there's butter lettuce and black seeded Simpson and some type of red leaf lettuce. I think it's a red romaine, but I'm not sure because it came in this free mix. Baker Creek will often send you free seeds with your order, and that's where this came from. So that red lettuce came from this seed mix, but I'm going to plant some of these unknown lettuce varieties too. Now put a few seeds in each hole, and later I'll just thin them out. And we'll just leave 1 seedling per soil block. Now some people leave the soil block, the hole in the middle, open, but I like to put a little bit of soil on top and pat it down and then cover it. It helps hold in the moisture. Technically, it doesn't need light right now to germinate. But I tend to leave it under light, and then when the seedlings germinate, they're going to need the light anyway. Now the temperature here in this room right now is 74 degrees. This is our furnace room. And right now the furnace is running. So in the last 24 hours, the hottest it's been in here is 78, and the coldest it's been is 68. So far, this has been a good temperature for growing the lettuce. Now this week, it's going to get down in the teens every night. And I think there's going to be one day it's barely going to get above freezing. So the furnace is going to be running a lot. And I'm curious, will this room get too warm for the lettuce? But if it does, at the other end of the basement under the kitchen, that room tends to stay cold. And I can always set up another shop light down there and move some of the lettuce. But so far, this room has done well. Now let's clean out these water tubs. This one's the worst. Now that's much better. Now remember, I set this up because we went out of town for Christmas and we were gone more than 10 days. And it worked really well. So I'm just going to leave it. And I just used this simple wicking rope. And honestly, I don't know if it's anything special, but it looks like just a simple cotton cord. Now, any supplies that I use, you can always look down in the video description. Click the arrow and all that text will drop down and there's going to be links there. And before I forget, these lights are just simple shop lights that I bought from Home Depot. And they're set up on just a timer. Now last, let's harvest 2 heads of lettuce and then we're going to plant some radishes. Yeah, that's a good size. Now check back next week, probably on one of our shorts, and see the lettuce that we harvest. Then in 2 weeks, come on back and we're going to pot up these seedlings. Plus, check on the beets and the radishes. Now the snow, it was a surprise because they'd only predicted 1, maybe 3 inches. But I woke up this morning and we were under a winter storm warning. And they predicted up to 6 more inches. So, wow, it was a surprise. But all the vegetables out there are well protected by some fleece. We still have a few beets, but I'm saving those to go to seed in the spring and summer. We do have a few lettuces, but they're really tiny. They're not going to grow anymore till the spring. We also have a variety of greens and some turnips. But for fresh salad right now, we're going to have to harvest here in the basement. Now soon it's going to be time to start seeds. Are you excited? What are you planning to grow? I'll be making a video about my plans too. Let's get this salad up and get it washed before it wilts. Thank you for visiting our grow room. Stay warm. Good morning and welcome back to our garden. Today we're going to take all those leftover bags of leaves and turn them into leaf mold. That means we're going to change them from leaves into soil. We're going to learn together because this is my first time. Now let's feed the birds and the squirrels and then collect the supplies. Now, leaf mold needs to be left for 1 to 2 years to break down into soil. So I need to put it in a place that I don't plan to plant in. So this corner is going to be perfect. This little rain barrel, it's never held water ever since we got it for free. But it's got this cute fish, so we saved it. But I do need to move it. Then I'm going to take that green hardware cloth cage I made and put it right there. I think there's some water in there, but no, I don't see any. Yeah, I was right. There's just a little bit at the bottom. Tried to dump it out, but it really doesn't want to come out. It'll be okay. Now this is what we call the alley garden. I haven't shown you this area yet. In the summer, I grow zinnias in this bed. And over here is our community shelf. So I give 3 free things to the community. I share plants, I share supplies, basically anything that I don't need. So now's a good time to set out all of those leaf bags that we folded up. Remember, they're stacked in the garage. It's Saturday. People driving by will be able to see them and take them for free. Now let's go get the sign. I don't want those bags blowing into this alleyway. You know, it feels good to share with the community. It's time for lunch now. So after I eat, we'll come back. Well, I'll probably have changed out of my coat and maybe a different hat. It's getting warm, but there was ice on those shelves this morning. The birds and squirrels, they're going to like this time. They're going to come out and have themselves something to eat. Squirrels are competing for those peanuts. I put out the peanuts really for the blue jays, but squirrels love them too. Okay, lunch is done, and let me show you how we're going to make the leaf mold. It is very simple. So you need a trash bag. And I like to use the large, thick contractor bags. But you can use any trash bag you want. These are nice because when you pick them up and they're really, really heavy, they don't rip as easy. Now you need to poke holes in the bottom because you want the water to be able to drain out. And for that, I'm going to use this spade, this garden fork. But you can use whatever you have. Then just fill it up with leaves. I think 2 of these bags can fit into one of these contractor bags. After that, I'm going to close it with a zip tie. And we're just going to leave it for 1 to 2 years. I've seen different results online, but I suspect it's going to take 2 years. But if I do this every year, then I'll have a constant source of new, free, homemade soil. I mean, the cost of the bag. Now, we're going to put this in the corner and have the bags stored in here because I want to take up less of a footprint in the garden, because this is a small space that I grow in. Of course, this isn't required, but I happen to have this hardware cloth. I could just not even use a bag and just fill this ring up with leaves, but it would take much longer to break down. Now we're using a dark trash bag because that'll heat up. We're going to fill 1 or 2 bags and then place the ring over them because it would be kind of hard to lift them up and over. It's pretty tall. Come on, let's learn together. Now because I've left these outside and they've gotten wet, the bottoms are ruined. So I can't share these with the community. But I will cut off that wet damaged part and recycle the rest of the paper. Now you want the leaves to be moist. Now I wanted to use this narrow gap in the front. So I zip tied the bag on. It seemed to work. I could have made this ring bigger, but I want to limit the space because this is a very warm spot in the summer. And next year I'm going to grow okra all along the garage and along the fence. So I only wanted to use a small area for this leaf mold. I'm going to leave this one open and see if maybe after I add another bag, I can fit more in this one. Now you are going to find sticks in the bags of leaves. Let's just pick them out. Let's try to fit one more bag down in this gap. I'm going to recycle this. Now the neighbors are outside talking, so we're going to talk inside. That's one reason I don't normally film on Saturday. But Monday and Tuesday, it is going to pour. So why are we bagging up the leaves? The dark bag helps it to heat up. The moisture will also help, and it'll break down very slowly. Yeah, I've put a lot of leaf as mulch on the garden, and that's going to break down too. But that'll just become part of the garden soil. But by breaking down these leaves in bags, with the holes poked in it so the water can drain out, it breaks down into soil. Then I can use it for potting up plants to share on the community shelf, and it'll save me money. Okay, they're really still talking really loud out there, and I don't want to interrupt them, and I don't want to interrupt their privacy, so we're going to work inside. So let's cut some holes in the rest of these trash bags. Make sure you don't do it on the wrong side. Look for that seam. That means it's the bottom. Now, I'm going to water this outside, because if I water it in here, it's just going to be too heavy to move. Now, the green circle needs one more bag, but the rest of these bags I'm going to put along the fence. And we're going to work on that now, here inside the garage. So altogether we made 9 bags. So next December, because it's still December here, I filmed some videos ahead to give myself a Christmas break. So December of 2024, we'll open 1 bag. But I suspect most are going to be ready in December of 2025. Good morning and welcome back to our grow room. Today I'm going to give you an update on the indoor lettuce. Now remember, 3.5 weeks ago, we potted this up into bigger pots. And we set up the self-watering system. And it looks good. Let me show you. Now, 7 weeks ago, we used a soil blocker to start a variety of lettuce seeds, like these. Now, most of these were my own saved seeds. Now, 6 weeks after we started the seeds, I harvested for the first time 2 heads. 3 weeks after we started the seeds in the seed blocks, in the soil blocks, we potted them up to bigger pots. And these behind me were the last to transplant. These were the smallest. They were really tiny. That's why their growth is behind that other group of lettuce. I planted the other ones first, potted them up first because they were the biggest. But then I realized my husband Dale and I, we were going to go out of town for Christmas for 10 days. So we weren't going to be home to water. So they got the idea to buy a self-watering planter. Let me show you. And it came with 2. So it has water in the base, and then there's a black insert. And you fill that with soil. And you put in I put 3 transplants in each planter. Then there's a little reservoir to pour in the water, and it indicates when it has enough. See these blue lines on here? And then it has a little gauge that will go up. And when it's at the top line, that's the max of the water. When it's the bottom line, that's the minimum. But then I had 18 more plants left over. So I looked on Amazon and I found the cheapest option. And it was this right here. And this is what is called wicking rope. I think this company called it seedling watering rope. I'll put the link in the description. And it came with 4 of these bunches, and that was 120 feet altogether. And it was so simple to set up. I just used an old dish pan, filled it with water. Then each pot needs its own wicking rope. They can't share. And I just measured it and cut it to length. Then I secured it in place with some floral wire. But you could use like a twist tie or a paper clip, or you could just push it down into the soil. I did notice that the lettuce roots are actually growing in through that rope. Interesting. Now, growing lettuce is important to me because Dale, my husband, is not crazy about cooked vegetables, but he will eat a fresh raw salad every day. And being winter right now, I just can't grow lettuce here in north central Maryland. So I thought, let's try growing it in the basement this winter, and I think it has been a huge success. Like I said, these smallest ones, they were the runts. So they have plenty of room still because they're still small. And most of these varieties back here are actually smaller head varieties anyway. They're a butter variety. These two aren't. But the other lettuce is getting really crowded, so I want to separate those out. And then I'll give them more room, and I can show you how I set up the wicking ropes. We're going to put them over here so they can share the same water reserve as this lettuce. Now these are just the cheap thin trays. So I want to check them for any holes because I don't want the water dripping and leaking out all over the floor. I'm going to triple them up. Now these are really strong, thick, bootstrap farmer 10 by 10 trays. They're really sturdy, but I only have the small size. And this year I am going to invest in the 10 by 20 bootstrap farmer trays. They're more expensive, but they're worth it. They really last. Now, if you notice this really thin head of lettuce, that's because, here, let me show you. That's because there was another head in the middle blocking it from the light, and that's what I harvested last week. It gave it more room. Hopefully it'll grow more. Now, the instructions that came with the wicking rope said that each pot is going to need its own rope. They can't share. Like, you can't, loop it from pot to pot. That was in the instructions. Also, that the water can't climb more than 8 inches. So I picked something that was on the same level with the pots. Now, if water is wicking too quickly, tie a knot in the rope, but make sure that knot is in the water. So let's fill up the water for these 3 trays of lettuce, and then harvest 2 heads of lettuce for this week. Now, the temperature here in the grow room varies from 68 degrees to 77 degrees. Perfect for growing this lettuce. So if you're thinking about growing lettuce inside, I hope this helps you. Good morning. It has been a cold, windy, snowy week, but I wanted to get you out in the garden for an update. Because believe it or not, next week the temperature is going to soar close to 60, and I want to have a comparison. Now, first, we need to shovel so we can feed the birds and the squirrels. Come on and help me. Did you see their tracks? The birds and the squirrels, they know this is the area where I put out the food. And a bunch of the birds are up there in the trees waiting to come over. Now I've got the snow cleared, and it's salt, and then put out the seeds. They are ready. Feels like 8 degrees and my hands are absolutely frozen. I had my gloves on when I was working, but I took them off to sign. So I need to hurry up and show you the garden. I want to show you where all the different plants are growing. And then we're going to hurry back inside so the birds and the squirrels can eat. I can always film them from inside the kitchen. So the lettuce, it's asleep under this tunnel right here. And these raspberries, they've been asleep for a long time. But look, they have buds for the spring already. Now this blueberry bush, it loves the cold. It's going to do just fine. Now remember, our fall greens are underneath these tunnels. And I'm curious, next week when I uncover them, hang on, let me take these mittens off. So tomorrow night it's supposed to get down to 9 degrees and very windy. So will these greens survive? The snow has helped insulate them. It's like a double or triple protection. Now the carrots are still in the ground under here. And remember, we're trying to save beets and onions for seeds for next year. And those are right under there. We'll see if they survive. But I do know the blackberries and the strawberries are going to be just fine. They can handle very cold weather. And the strawberries are right along here and right over here. How the camera battery just went dead from the cold. I've already had to put it back inside. So let me hurry up and finish filming. But first I want to show you the green stalk. I've already shoveled along here. Let's get it salted. So this is our green stalk, and it's well protected. And I know the pansies will do good, but I'm a little concerned about the herbs. But I think in this part of the garden, they're going to be just fine. So the neighbors have a gutter problem, obviously. But the icicles do look beautiful. Our gutters seem to be fine. We don't have any ice. The blue jays love the peanuts, but they do tend to scare the other birds. Okay, I need to get inside where it's warm. I need to let the animals come eat. I just wanted to make sure you saw the garden, so next week when we open it up, we can compare it and see what survived. Good morning and welcome back to our garden. Can you believe 6 days ago there was snow covering the ground? It was windy and cold and felt like 8 degrees. Do you remember? My hands were absolutely frozen. And today the high is going to be 70. It's just crazy. So we need to uncover the fall vegetables. But first, let's feed the birds and the squirrels and gather our supplies. Snow finally melted yesterday. It took 3 days above freezing for it to melt. I think we had about 1.5 feet of snow and ice. Now remember, the tunnels have a double layer. They have netting that protects from the bugs in the summer and the squirrels in the fall, and then a second layer of frost cloth to protect from freezing vegetables. Now, both of these areas of fall vegetables, I don't protect until it gets to the mid to low 20s. The green stalk you have to cover a little bit earlier than that, at about 27, 26 degrees. So today we're going to take off both the frost cloth and the netting, because I don't think the squirrels are going to dig in there. I've noticed lately they've been content to dig in the leaves, not down into the dirt. We're going to take them both off because they're all really wet. I'm going to lay them out in the garage to let them dry, because these vegetables are going to suffer if they keep all this moisture under there. Now first we're going to get all the sandbags off to make it easier for me. Wow, the sun feels so good. Now, I've enjoyed the snow, but wow, this sun has that warm feeling. It's just great. But I'm going to have to take off this long sleeve shirt. And this is full, so I'm going to have to store these in the garage and come back before I get more. I know winter isn't done, but it sure feels like spring, and it smells like spring too. It makes me think about when I was a little girl, about 7, I started running track with the YMCA. This is what it smelled like back then. Here's my soil for 2024. I bought it in the fall. Now I envision leaving them all in the wagon, but obviously there's too many. And I didn't want to pile them up somewhere and block things, but kind of putting them around the edges seems to work well. I'll use them again in the spring and summer to use the netting. The hardest job is done. Now it's 73 degrees, and tomorrow it's going to be about 59. And after that, the next 2 weeks, the highs are the mid 40s to about 50. And overnight, it's not going to get below 28. So for the next 2 weeks, these vegetables are going to be just fine uncovered. Like I said, they can handle temperatures down to about 24. And this airing out will help them because their worst risk is disease from moisture. Now let's see how they survive that 9-degree weather. Kale looks really good. It can handle really cold temperatures. And the turnips, they're still nice and firm. They look good. If they had frozen, they would be mushy. One thing that got bit was the Brussels sprouts, but I think it's going to recover. I think it's because the hoop pressed down from the weight of the snow, and there was snow actually touching the top of the plant. Now those few baby lettuces look really good. And one of the cabbages just looks perfect. And the other one's because it's at the end. And again, the hoop was smushed down. Now remember, we left these two cabbages because we want them to send up a flower head in the spring and make their own seeds for us to save. Now the cloth and the netting, I'll lay it out in the garage to dry. But we're going to leave the hoops in place. Mostly, it just helps me know where the plants are so I don't walk on top of them. Again, the Brussels sprouts have some damage. And the chard too. I do know the chard is more sensitive, but I think they're both going to recover because their roots are still alive. The kohlrabi, it looks really good. And wow, the Napa cabbage, it looks wonderful. We even had one that snow was pressing on, but there's not any damage. I have overwintered Napa cabbage in the past, throughout the whole winter. And I've even saved seeds from it in the spring. So along here is the celery and the parsley. It was planted late in the fall. It still survived, and come spring, it's going to grow some more. Now remember behind me where we saved onions and some beets? I'm going to overwinter them, and in spring they'll send up a flower head and they'll make seeds. We want to save seeds from them. The onion leaves have a little bit of damage, but the bulb is still nice and firm. So are the beets. Carrots are still good. Look at that. Not frozen at all. And I'm going to just leave them in the ground. In the house, we have quite a few in the refrigerator. They save for several months, but I'm just going to leave these for now in the ground. I knew that the strawberry plants would be fine. They don't need any protection. Weather permitting, about mid-March, we're going to plant our first onions, lettuces, and radishes along here. So that means a little bit at a time, I need to work on harvesting these fall vegetables and dehydrating them. Then mid-April is going to be time to plant carrots. So before that, I'm going to have to harvest all these carrots. I did notice on that carrot had these little tiny roots coming out of it, so I need to keep my eye on that. But we're for sure going to leave some in the ground to save seed. Now in this area, that's where I'm going to plant the summer vegetables, so there's no hurry to harvest that. Now let's take a look at the garlic. It's a little bit of damage on the leaves, but that's pretty normal in winter. It's going to grow just fine in the spring. Now the berry cuttings are still back there. I'm really not going to know if they're going to be successful until they grow new leaves in the spring. Are you excited about spring coming? What are you planning to grow? Have you already started planting your garden? Next video, we're going to start our onion seeds. Good morning and welcome back to our garden. Today it's 12 weeks before our last freeze, so it means it's time to start some seeds in the basement to put out later into the garden. Today we're going to start 3 types of onions, plus we're going to direct sow 1 flower in the front pots, sweet alyssum. But first we need to feed the birds and the squirrels, so come on. You see that beautiful greens over there? Let's go ahead and harvest some of them. But we need the basket and a knife. Let's go get those supplies. While we're here, let's go ahead and grab a packet of soil. And let's put these yard waste bags out on the community shelf. This is where I share free plants and excess garden things with my neighbors. I really like to inspire other people to grow a beautiful garden. It gives me so much joy. Okay, we're going to go back to collect the greens, but first let's go in the front and sow those sweet alyssum seeds. Now, I could have started these in the basement, but I have such limited space. And sweet alyssum has done really well self-seeding. Here's some old ones. It also grows down here along the sidewalk. So we're going to try just sprinkling some seeds. And when the time is right and the temperature's right, they're going to come up themselves. And if they don't, that's okay. I also have more, a dwarf variety that I'm going to plant in these green stalks, but not today. I don't have the time to open up this netting. Okay, so we're going to harvest 2 of these beautiful Napa cabbages. And that's going to be enough. It looks really small right here in the garden, but I've made the mistake in the before of harvesting too much, and then I have this mountain of greens in the house that overwhelms me. So let's just get these two. I'm going to use my favorite knife. It's really sharp. This is called a rice knife. Look at that. This survived 2 weeks of sub-freezing temperatures in the teens and the single digits. And it was protected by a tunnel, but covered in 1.5 feet of snow. It still amazes me to think that I can grow these kind of greens during the winter. It's just awesome. Okay, let's go down to the basement now and harvest some lettuce. So this lettuce is 10 weeks old. I started it back in November. And these have really outgrown their pots. Let me show you. See all these roots? I've already harvested the outer leaves of these plants, and the middle's what's left. So I either need to put these into bigger pots, or I need to start feeding them. They really started to suffer 2 weeks ago. I noticed the leaves were turning yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest all of these, but the ones behind me, can you see those? Let me adjust the lighting here. Those I'm going to leave for now. This is going to be enough for this week's salads. Let's bring them upstairs and get them in some water. Now, another good reason to harvest these now is that the black seeded Simpson lettuce. Let me show you an example. Like this one here. It was wet. Those leaves are getting bitter. This variety has struggled the most growing here in the basement, but outside in the garden, it's really a powerhouse. But if we look at this variety here, look at all those roots. This is a butterhead, a butter type lettuce. I harvested some green ones. Those are still tender and sweet. That's done much better under the lights. But I'm going to try to get a few more weeks out of these heads behind me. Now these are my runts behind me. They were tiny because before I potted them up, they got shaded out by some bigger heads of lettuce. I've already harvested all the best heads of lettuce. And I'm going to compost all those pots of soil because they're only full of roots. Now this is our next batch of lettuce. It's only a week old. It's time to pot it up. Now the cold weather is back and the furnace is running, so I've gotten warm. Had to take off my long sleeve shirt. Maybe you hear the furnace running and hear the popping. This is an old historic house, and we still have those old radiators, and I absolutely love them. Now, mentioning of loving something, why do I grow all this food? Lettuce in the basement, cabbage outside, working hard in the cold. Well, yes, I'm proud we've grown our own lettuce for the last 2 months, and I like saving money, but those aren't my main reasons. My main why is I enjoy it. The garden or the grow room, this is my meditation. When life stresses and worries and distractions, they just fade away in the garden. Research does show gardening is good for your mental health. That's my number one reason, simply because I enjoy it. Now, key to keeping this enjoyable is documenting what's working for me, what gives me pleasure, what makes gardening easier, and what I struggle with, what I don't like, what causes me to have pain and feel overwhelmed, consumes my time. For example, the salad. I learned waiting 3 weeks to pot it up. That's just too much time. That's too long. The small lettuce heads suffered because they got shaded out from the light. I knew 3 weeks was too long, but I thought 2 weeks would be enough, but no. 1 week is perfect, because look at the roots on these lettuces. So 1 week is just perfect, and I documented that on my phone. Potted up sooner than 3 weeks. Helps me not to feel stressed and feel overwhelmed or like I wasted my time. So what works for you, try to document that, and what doesn't work for you in the garden, then go review it and adjust how you work on your growing things. I also put down that they grow fast and get crowded really quickly. So limit one tray to only 6 pots. And I use these empty pots just to provide support. Okay, let's switch gears to talking about bulbing onions. I want to start them inside 10 to 12 weeks before our last frost. This is perfect. It's 12 weeks right now. And we're going to use the soil blocker and these 10 by 10 bootstrap farmer trays. So I can make 25 blocks fit in here. So we're going to start 3 varieties, and the first is a red small 2-inch Italian sweet onion. It's called flat Italian cipollone onion. It is an heirloom, and these are my own saved seeds. That's what's actually out there still in the garden. That's an intermediate day onion, and that means it needs 12 to 14 hours of sunlight in order to bulb up. And we can grow that here in north central Maryland. But this is a fast growing 70-day onion. and it stores well. I still have some in the kitchen after 6 months. And I'm going to put several seeds in each soil block. Now we have 2 more varieties, and they're both long day onions, and that means they need 14 hours or more a day of sunlight. They grow well in the north, but we can grow them here too. They're both a sweet yellow onion, Walla Walla, and yellow Spanish sweet onion, Utah. Now, the Walla Walla takes about 125 days to mature, but it doesn't store well, so when I harvest them, I'm going to cut them up and freeze them. And the yellow Spanish takes about 130 days to mature, but those store well too, about 6 months, like those red onions. Now, the Walla Walla are 4 to 6 inch, and the sweet Spanish are 3 to 6 inches. Yeah, I had to look at my notes to check that. Both are hybrids, and I don't plan to save the seeds, but I wanted to go ahead and use up the seeds that I had this year. Now they're going to germinate in about 7 to 15 days. I cover all of the seeds I sow with a dome to hold in the moisture. And they're going to go out in the garden in about mid-March. After they germinate and I know those seeds are viable, I'll share my extra seeds with the community. I'll put them out there on that community shelf. Boy, it's cold. Thank you for visiting our garden and our grow room. See you later. Bye-bye.